All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. Sorry we're late. It was my fault. My Louisiana internet. There are creationists in the wires and whatnot, and they try to prevent us from having this show. But here we are. We persevered. So welcome everybody. Jonathan Becker, Vandalia, Savage Cobra, Icarus. Welcome. How you doing? And joining me today, we have my host and co-host Peter. Welcome back to the show.
Who also screwed up just at the start because I hadn't paused the video, so apologies for that.
It's okay.
But
it's all right. It's all good.
We got it working. It working.
Very true. We got it working. And we also have Nestlig, who's one of my editors. Welcome, Nestlig.
Hello, hello.
So, well, I guess we should probably jump right into it then, huh?
Yeah, we should.
Since we're already late.
I'm going to say it because you're not going to say it. If there's a Patreon somewhere out there who wants to buy Jackson a new, faster computer, hook him up. Let's do this.
Technically, I do have a Patreon. I just don't use it. I made one a long time ago.
Someone should just donate an entire laptop. It's happened before, so why not? Jackson needs one.
I mean, that's probably true.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's like 8 years old, something like that. It's pretty old.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
It has served me well.
It has.
It has served me well.
So let's jump into the video.
Yep. Let's get into it.
So what's wrong with drawing these very sharp lines? Why do you want to include intelligent design in the scientific enterprise?
Well, for a couple of reasons. First, if scientists claimed that they did not know how life developed, that would be good with me. That would be a step in the right direction because they don't. Unfortunately, people pretend that they do. On the other hand, we can tell, we conclude design, we infer design from physical evidence. It's not from some, vision or anything that people have. If you look at a mousetrap, you can tell it was designed, and you can tell because you see how the parts are arranged, what the relationship of the parts.
No. You can tell because you know it's designed. You know that humans made it. You know how humans made it. You know the parts that humans have made it have been used in different ways. So no, that's not how we recognize design.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, well, first we look at a thing and we ask, does it reproduce?
Mm-hmm.
If it can't reproduce, then that should tell you something about its origin. If it's like, wood and metal pieced together, then yeah, probably not. However, in the fossil record, more specifically in the archaeological record, there can be more questions about whether like a stone was flaked or not. And researchers can actually tell whether there was indeed intelligent design in like the flaking of a rock based on how it was specifically flaked. The specific fractures in the rock would indicate how it was or came to be that way. And certain breaks won't occur unless you have like this repeated knocking of like two rocks together, right? And so you can conclude based on that yeah, okay.
The point is that we have predictions of how a quote-unquote designed stone tool would look like,
right?
And we can test that prediction by identifying these specific stone. But what do you do when you come across live? Like, what predictions do they make? Like they say, oh, it's complicated. Yeah, we know it's complicated. Yeah, it's. But how? What do you predict specifically? That's the point.
Absolutely, and we really don't get that from them.
Yeah, with stone tools, we can also reproduce the stone tools by figuring out the method that was used, which is pretty much the same thing that we've done with life. We figured out how it diversified, for one, and how things are not irreducibly complex, and still we figured out how we got from less complex to more complex organisms. We figured that out. And guess what? There wasn't a designer. He wasn't needed.
Right. Well, there are a couple of papers that are really good. One is Beyond Reasonable Doubt. It's about a statistical test that these researchers conducted, where they tested whether the distribution or the phylogeny of like genes, as you go back in time, they should get like more and more similar to each other as they approach the common ancestor. These researchers tested that hypothesis with regard to common ancestry, this universal common ancestry, versus like family common ancestry versus species common ancestry. And in all of these cases, right, it was far more parsimonious that there was universal common ancestry among them instead of family or species common ancestry.
And there were many standard deviations from like what you would expect from random. Like I don't know specifically how many standard deviations.
Extraordinarily small chance. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like I think they put it in a way like it's more likely to pick the same atom in the whole universe twice at random than this. I think that's how they put it. Even
I think you're right. That does sound familiar.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy how tiny of a chance it is. And Erica has done a couple of videos on that. There was another one using that same sort of methodology, but applying it to primates. So it used like their genetics, their morphology, their fossils, their biogeographic distribution, and did all that for, with species versus family ancestry versus common ancestry for primates. And again, like super duper tiny possibility that it's just either every different species or even family ancestry. It's the odds that it was either of those is way less likely than universal common ancestry. And so that's an actual specific prediction that we can test, where we can directly compare common ancestry versus separate ancestry, and common ancestry comes out like infinitely ahead in those sorts of tests.
And there's also another thing we need to bear in mind, like Behe's favorite arguments are not arguments for design. It's arguments against evolution, which are not the same thing. It's a very important detail that's often overlooked by these people. Like you could, like, for the sake of argument, let's say you have just disproven evolution. You still need to do the job of showing there's a there for your hypothesis.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it would help if you had a designer or a mechanism that the designer uses to design, which is, for some reason, a thing that neither ID proponents nor creationists want to try and figure out how it was designed.
Like in the stone tools. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
No, go ahead.
Like in the stone tool example that Jackson mentioned, like we understand the mechanisms that like humans or early hominins even used to make these stone tools, which gives a prediction of the markings that are left. But what mechanisms do they propose, and what markings, quote unquote, would it leave behind? Like there is not, like I have never heard any discussion remotely from these guys about that. I've never heard them talking about that. They always complain about the thing that they are against. They continuously argue against
absolutely
the mainstream.
Yeah, there's no discussion of the mechanism by which the flagellum was created, or chloroquine resistance, or whatever Behe's on this week.
It's always it's too improbable for it to have evolved, and therefore design.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
but
by what method? How do you know?
What they're saying is, I don't know how it happened, but the way you say it happened is wrong.
Yeah,
how? So you can figure out that one is wrong because why?
Well, they try to throw arguments like, well, it's just too complex, or we talked about the waiting time problem, which
last week they like they also made the almost explicitly made the excuse that it's we don't propose anything physical or material, so we don't.
Right. Yes.
There is supposed to be a mechanism that is testable. So yeah, that's almost.
That's right. With regard to the, he's like, oh, we don't know what the mechanism of radioactive decay is, or whatever, or sorry, which one, like which radioisotopes are gonna decay, and well, we don't expect to, find anything either. Then what are you proposing? I'm just like, I don't know. It was designed, but I don't know how. I don't really care. Anyway.
It was
All right,
supernatural, Jackson.
Yeah, sure.
With respect to each other to perform a function. When you look at an outboard motor on a boat, you see the same thing. You see a purposeful arrangement of parts. Now we see that in the machinery of the cell. We see outboard motors in the cell. We see trucks in the cell, and so on.
We see trucks in the cell?
But your life would be
This is
so
news
much
to me.
easier if at the end of your article,
That's
It's just I said a few episodes ago. I said that this is homunculus thinking.
You did say that.
Yeah.
We see Michael Behe. We see trucks in the cell. Michael, we see trucks in the cell. Behe.
Yeah. I'll have to stress they're Kenworth, not Peterbilt, because I wouldn't allow that.
I do really like Nestle, that you did say that a few weeks ago. Like, they literally think there are little like people going around in the cell. And little trucks driving around the cell, and they're like, yeah, trucks in the cell.
Also to make the argument more explicit, like all structures, the cell as a whole, and even the parts, they are not purposely arranged. They are self-assembled, and they also undergo constant synthesis and breakdown, like a constant turnover, which is very unlike the machines that we are used to.
Right. Famously, our dear friend Nephilim Free used animated videos, which at the start it says, this is a depiction on how things work in a cell. It's not actual footage. It's just explanatory on how things work. And then he says, well, look, there are proteins that are walking along a bridge to take one protein to another.
Right. Oh, the kinesins, yeah.
He threw me off.
Yeah.
His stream when I mentioned that. Yeah, this is not actual footage.
So, fun fact about that video, actually, because there's a video put out by one of the, I don't remember if it was the Discovery Institute or whomever. They were describing the kinesin, the little walk-in protein guy, and so a professor of my so when I took cell biology, this professor showed this video talking about kinesin, like, going up and down the microtubules, got the dynein arms and all that sort of stuff, going through all the whatever the motions, and then at the last sentence of the video is, that's why it demonstrates intelligent design. And I was sitting there like, what? Excuse me? Oh, also, Vandalia in 1998 for $9.99. Speaking of design, next month, me, RJ, and Godless Engineer are working on an episode about how intelligent design isn't that intelligent, especially with humans, not to mention other animals. Thank you, Vandalia. Go ahead, Nestling.
Was that on accident, the video? That I found this neat video? Or
I live in Louisiana. Nestling, your guess is as good as mine.
All right.
But, I mean, other than that, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was coming or anything. Like, you wouldn't have known if that last sentence had been cut off. I wouldn't change anything about the video. It was a perfectly fine video.
And if I'm not mistaken, I've seen the video too, and if I'm not mistaken, they plagiarized it. Or maybe I'm wrong. I think they plagiarized that very animation.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, the cell biology, that was literally the only time in that class that was ever mentioned. I think she had basically just seen that video and maybe watched the first 30 seconds or so and was like, oh, this seems fine. Something like that. And then it just so happened, unfortunately, that was tacked on at the very end. So anyway,
but about the little motor, I have mentioned before, the guy called Daniel Nicholson, who has written many papers and pieces about how The cell isn't very much machine-like, and also the proteins are very much machine-like. And one point that he makes is like at the scale, at the molecular scale, water becomes highly viscous, and basically it's a never-ending hailstorm of these water molecules like bombarding you, because that is what temperature is. Above zero, water like fluctuates all around you like that, and so walking at that scale is like walking through molasses or through a hurricane that never ends. So it's very unlikely that these little motors walk like a little robot. So what they actually do is they act like a Brownian ratchet. Basically, they use the energy from ATP to direct Brownian motion into one particular direction. That's it.
Okay.
So it's a very different mechanism from what we are used to at our scale.
Instead of walking, is it more like a tank track?
Yeah, it's like a herky-jerky motion. Like it by like sometimes like due to Brownian motion, it goes into one direction, but then it's unable to go back. Basically, it's a ratchet. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, like the actual motion of it. It's like it's not like walking, I guess.
No, it's not walking. It's not.
Is it more like it's rolling? What'd you say?
It's a very difficult to describe because we are not used to this kind of thing at our scale. So we don't really have the vocabulary to describe these things.
Okay.
So
well, that's fair.
Even describing it as a ratchet is also an analogy. Still.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's cool.
Moving on.
Ready to keep going? Yeah.
That's fun.
You said, if you would like to pursue this further, go to the Department of Philosophy. Go to the Department of Theology. Here the science ends.
I say that after we conclude design. I do not infer to God. And
yes, you do.
As I write, some people have approached me and said, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's intelligent, but I think it's, space aliens have visited us.
Fred Hoyle's explanation.
Exactly.
Go ahead, John.
No, that's not. Okay, pause. Pause. One thing. No, that's not Fred Hoyle's explanation. Fred Hoyle is that abiogenesis is constantly occurring in space and then raining down on us. Yeah, but also, Behe, all the men here are Christians. Need I remind anyone? And none of them, not a single one of them I have ever met, has argued for aliens having created life on Earth. Not one of them. If anybody who I've ever seen like actually argue it was aliens, they're not intelligent design advocates. They're just like conspiracy theorists, basically. I don't know any overlap between like the ancient aliens crowd and these guys. I don't know of it, if it exists. And I've read a lot of their papers.
I really like one comment in the live chat saying like, did Behe think Osmosis Jones was a documentary?
I hope so. That would be great if we all had was it Chris Rock? Running around shooting little bad guys in us.
I like Brian Stevens' comment. Your problem is putting Behe and think in the same context.
That is true. Very true.
But
all right,
so I think someone is about to become really upset because now God is mentioned, and I don't think that Lennox is going to be able to shut up about God. We'll have to see what happens.
Years, there are several, and they're very important. Is what is an explanation? That's a crucial question.
Okay.
And Michael cited Newton, hypothesi non fingo. His gravity, when I was taught in school, I thought the law of gravity explained gravity. And I was an adult before I discovered it explains no such thing. So that even a scientific explanation within its own terms is rarely full. It's almost never full. That's the first thing. Secondly, we admit at all kinds of levels explanations in terms of agent, like if we want a complete description of the motor car. Now, your earlier question to Michael, could God have done this? There is a sense in which God can do things any way he likes. But the issue is...
Wait, hold on. Pause for 1 second.
Yeah, I told you.
We ascribe agency in terms of descriptions of things like
Cars.
a man-made vehicle.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
do it for rocks or trees or clouds. Like, what are you talking about?
Hold on.
A human-made object.
Clouds can be made. So there's an artist in the Netherlands.
No, Peter, you know what I'm referring to.
There's an artist in the Netherlands who creates clouds inside of rooms and then takes pictures of it. So yes, clouds as such can be made. They're different than the ones you see in the sky.
Know what I mean, Peter.
See? But
you darn well know what I mean.
I know. I'm just trying to pull your leg, but it's so nice to see Lennox get really upset and then completely failing by saying, "Yeah, we can see this in cars. Yes, cars don't reproduce. They don't form naturally. Yes, we do know how cars are made. There are videos on YouTube. There's a series, I think, used to be on Discovery, how it's made. You might want to watch that.
Oh, yeah. But you see, when a mommy car and a daddy car love each other very much,
nothing happens.
Must be nice. Sounds like a sequel for another Cars movie.
Yeah, you get a big bill to have it restored into its original form if that happens. When a mommy car and a daddy car love each other very much. I've seen it happen.
How do these guys take themselves seriously? We ascribe agency all over the place. Look at cars.
Yeah. And then he comes up with the best explanation ever. God can do it however he wants. Well, how does he do it then?
It's really funny to me that like people on Twitter, I know it's Twitter, the cesspool, but like point to these three men as like arbiters of knowledge, basically. And they say just the silliest things. They're just silly little guys.
Who was it? Was it Feynman who said that you can be brilliant in one field of science and be a complete idiot in everything else? Something along those lines. I forgot the actual quote, but I think it was Feynman.
That's true because Nobel Prize winners get what's called a Nobel syndrome, where they basically win the Nobel Prize and they start talking about all sorts of different fields and they like kind of go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like physicists will be like, yes, let me tell you about biology and how cancer works, and the biologists are like, please stop, please go away.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we appreciate you, but
right. We appreciate it, but no. I'm sorry. Anyway.
And I'm still going to refer to our little clip in the intro where Behe gets sent away by the car mechanic because he doesn't know anything about car mechanics.
Yes.
This is how that works. Yeah. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
How does God do it? And secondly, is his activity detectable scientifically? Now, I'm putting those words together very carefully.
It's my question.
Is his...
Right.
And skipping the fact how you know that a God actually exists, and also sliding in the fact that it's your God that is doing that, not anyone else's God.
I say let's assume it's his God. How do we detect it?
Involvement detectable, but is it detectable in terms of science? In other words, if you set up your definition of science as restricted to the five senses, so that you're not, and here comes the principle, the Socratic principle, that is often violated, that the late Antony Flew saw, that when he came to conclude that there was an intelligent designer behind the universe on the basis of DNA, and they said, but you can't do that. He said, I follow the evidence where it leads. And this is the clash that arises. You can either say, well, science has come to an end. It cannot answer this question. There are very few people want to say that. Or you say, science is limited. We must open the field to other kinds of questions, like the why questions of purpose, like teleology and all this kind of thing.
No, that's not science.
The underlying mistake that we're forced to think is that science and rationality are coextensive when they're not.
And also that there.
That is to say, science
So
doesn't.
let's
Science doesn't do.
okay. Let's
Science
talk about
does
that
not
for a moment. So I actually
Yeah.
we talked about this when we did our video about whether miracles happen at Lourdes, right? We discussed this. Can science verify whether or not a miracle has occurred? No. The very best that science can say if miracles did happen and could repeatably or could be shown is science doesn't have an explanation. There's nothing wrong with saying that. It's really weird that he acts like there is. He's just lying. There isn't. There's nothing wrong with saying science can't answer that question. There are lots of things science can't answer. Is my blue the same as your blue? That sort of stuff. But the very best we could go is to say, well, we don't know how that's happening.
No, never mind that.
No, go ahead, shoot.
Actually, we can tell in a way that your blue is not the same as my blue, especially if we speak different languages with different color names.
Okay, well,
yeah.
But anyway, I was just referring to the qualia, the problem of qualia. But anyway, but you get what I mean, right? It's like
yeah.
There are lots of philosophical questions that science can't be applied to simply because it's not within the methodology of science. Like, can you objectively demonstrate that one piece of art is like better than another? I don't think so. You certainly can't do it with science, and so
there's another thing. Science is also not confined to the five senses. But when you bring up the question, is my blue the same as your blue? We can measure the wavelength. So we can measure whether or not the blue is the same. How you perceive it might be different based on your individual eye, and maybe even due to synapses in the brain, which some people have said is why there are African tribes that can see several different shades of green that we can't distinguish, but they can because they've got a name for each individual shade.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that has to do not with your eye, but with how your synapses have formed in your brain. But we do know a lot more than just the five senses. We can use instruments to figure things out, to pinpoint things. We can see things that we can't see with our five senses.
Well, yeah, but you have to interpret like the data through your five senses, as I think what he means. I think that's what he. I think that's what he meant. I think that's what
I won't quibble much over the five senses thing. Like I understand what he means by that.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, my argument with this is that he makes it as basic as possible, so it looks like it's as unreliable as possible, because we know that our senses fail us at times. So obviously you can't trust it. And this is what science is based on, because that is going to be the next argument somewhere down the line that they're going to make. We're fallible humans. We can't trust our senses.
Yeah.
Well,
and
sure.
so
I mean,
I think Joe. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nestle.
I don't want to interrupt. Sorry, like sometimes I can't help myself.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, like I think we need to also emphasize that he, like John, is basically saying that we are this explanation is outside of science. Like we are proposing something outside of the realm of science. But the problem is, you guys are presenting it as if it is science. That's the issue.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Exactly. It's also the case that Behe at one point argued put forward a definition of science, a broad definition of science, such that astrology will be counted as science as well.
Right. Yeah. You're right, because they do want intelligent design taught in the science classroom. I mean, that's what the Dover trial was literally about. And so it's funny that on the other hand, they're like, well, maybe it's not science. Maybe it goes beyond science. Okay, well, then we still can't teach it in the science classroom.
And keep in mind,
if you say like, oh, we are proposing a school of philosophy, like, let's call it a teleology. Like, I think it's also called teleology, basically.
Yeah.
Philosophy as well. But all right, go ahead. I have no problem with that. But at the moment, you go into science and try to put it in, then we have an issue.
And keep in mind that in the wake of the Dover trial, there were several states where they tried to redefine science, and at some point they came up with a definition that would allow astrology to be considered science. And famously, Behe was asked about this, and he said, yes, I think that astrology has made some great contribution to science. He's on the record saying this. I recently watched a talk that Ken Miller gave several years after the Dover trial, and he mentioned this, and had the quote on screen. So these people are fine with saying, yeah, astrology is science. It should be considered science, and it's made valuable contribution. I would know of no such contribution, so he would have to elaborate on that, I think.
I don't know, but I'll take your word for it.
I mean, I'll have to look up the quote, but I back then I did look it up, and he did say that. So he did make that statement that astrology had made good contributions in science.
I think like these kind of statements, like admissions, probably accidental admissions, but still admissions, because he just said that it's outside of science, while he sits next to people who continue to make the argument that it is science. So it's
right. Yeah, if they literally just wanted it to be a philosophy or a religion thing or something, I would say nothing. I would say nothing about it. It's not my problem, not my business. But they don't. They want to make it science. And so you have to pick a lane.
What do you call a non-science pretending to be a science?
Pseudoscience?
Exactly.
That's kind of like what do you call medicine that, or what do you call alternative medicine that works?
Yeah.
Medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we can keep going.
I think it was a slight mistake that they brought Lennox into this panel, because Lennox just can't shut up about God. So if you want to have a show about intelligent design, Lennox might not be a good pick. But we'll see.
The full field of rationality.
No, history is a rational discipline. So is philosophy.
There are other kinds of sciences, and this is what my PhD was about. There's historical scientific reasoning, which is all about abduction, inferring back to to explain causal origins. Imagine that you walk into the British Museum and you look at the Rosetta Stone, and someone says, "Well, how did those inscriptions come about?"
Oh my God!
The archaeologist is governed
another
by
man-made thing.
A principle that you alluded to indirectly. It's called methodological naturalism. We may only infer materialistic causes, whatever the evidence.
Humans are material causes.
The obvious explanation. This was produced by scribes,
right?
By intelligent agents.
Are humans not material causes? Are we not material causes anymore? Are we like, I don't know, like meta-natural causes or something? I don't know.
First of all, I like how
we use our mind. That's why.
I like how he just shut up John Lennox, preventing him from saying more nonsense. He just started talking over him, and then Lennox tried to get back with one or two words, but you could see Meyer getting annoyed with Lennox right now. But what I'm curious about is
Lennox more credit. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is he actually proposing that the Rosetta Stone is the work of some unknown intelligent designer? Why would he bring that up?
All they have are man-made. All they have are man-made things to go back to. It's literally the watchmaker argument. It's like the joke about it's like the joke conservatives do, where like I identify as an attack helicopter. Like this is their version of that because it's the watchmaker argument, and they're like, okay, well we're not going to use the watch. What about the Rosetta Stone? My guy, this is the same argument. It's the same thing.
It's also an equivocation. Like they say, like, oh, we accept design for these things, so why won't you accept design for these other things? And I will say, like, oh, because we have a mechanism that you can test for these things, but not for those things that you want to propose. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can keep going.
The activity of intelligence, and therefore that allows us to infer.
It's language.
There was one of the early pioneers in the information sciences named Henry Quastler said that the creation of new information is habitually associated with conscious activity. In other words, our uniform and repeated experience affirms that there's only one type of cause that produces information.
It's
but
the
uniform
same
and
quote
repeated experience
again.
is the basis of all historical scientific reasoning. So there is a basis in historical scientific reasoning to infer intelligent design. There's no need or reason to limit the conclusions that we can consider in that branch of science, because
unless
again, because it's human things, it's man-made things we're talking about. When we're talking about, like, if you find a bolt action rifle like buried in a field and you dig it up, no one goes, I wonder how this bolt action rifle evolved. No, it's a man-made object. Again, we know how it was made. The field of history is, we know how these things happen, or we are attempting to figure out how these things happen, but we understand that it's human causes, right? We're never like, I wonder what caused this, like the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. It just came out of nowhere, had no human involvement. No one thinks that.
And can we point out that the languages used on the Rosetta Stone, we have found those older versions of those languages. The only reason why the Rosetta Stone was important, because it had the exact same text in different languages, which gave us the capability of deciphering hieroglyphics. That is why it's important. But we have all these forms of writing in an earlier stage. So why does he bring up the Rosetta Stone? Because now we've got several languages saying the same thing on one piece of stone, so we can decipher a language. I still don't get his point, why he thinks this is so incredibly special. Because it was for us in order to decipher it. Other than that, it wasn't that special. It was just text on stone, which we had.
But it implies a mind, Peter. A mind.
Probably several minds who wrote it down. But never mind. Never mind. That's a pun.
Ha ha ha, so funny.
And here's the bottom line for all of this. Unless you presume a naturalistic worldview and imprison yourself within its confines.
That's the key issue.
That's not fair. If the evidence leads beyond a naturalistic view, you must pursue it, correct?
Why not? Why shouldn't you?
All right.
But why shouldn't you? That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're closing yourself within a prison.
All right. All three of you strike me as...
They're saying it's not science.
Argumentative.
They just said
the last comment in the live chat.
Do what?
Other than the last comment in the live chat, I was like cracking up because of that. He looks like he's questioning some life choices.
That is probably true. Yeah. All right. Yep.
Well, and another thing, Lennox said they presuppose that there's only the natural world. I don't think that is right. Science doesn't presuppose that there's only a natural world. Science only has the ability to explore and explain the natural world. Things we can't see are pretty hard to explain and to explore. A God who lives outside of space and time is pretty hard to study. So science doesn't presume to be able to study such a God. It's not a presupposition. It is, according to the evidence, that science limits itself to only the natural world.
Whatever you do it for less.
Yep.
Whatever you do it for less.
Right, we can keep going. It was I accidentally closed YouTube and then had to reopen it, and then when I did it, it gave me an ad. So All right, keep going.
I think this would work with all these three guys. Whatever you do, do it for less. All the money that people are throwing towards these guys, that money is wasted. Let them do it for less.
I mean, that's true.
Okay, continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
As rational men, and yet look at the lives you lead. Steve Meyer wrote an article on the Cambrian explosion for the Proceedings of the Biological Society at the Smithsonian Institution, and his editor was harassed and finally left the institution. Michael Behe
He wasn't. That's not what happened.
From his colleagues at Lehigh University.
Okay, let's pause. Okay, so that's not what happened. The editor was asked to not return, wasn't it? He wasn't fired. He was not like his contract wasn't renewed.
What was it again? I forgot the guy name, the editor. I think I forgot who was the editor again.
I don't remember who it was, but they claim like or no, I thought it was backwards. I thought it was Meyer was the editor and the other guy published an article. Or anyway, well, at any rate, one of them was, and it wasn't that he was harassed or bullied or he wasn't fired. He was simply, his contract was not renewed when it came to the end of his term, because all these guys love their persecution porn. They're all like, "Oh, woe is me! The Darwinian machine is trying to silence me," and it's like, actually, you just weren't good at your job, and they didn't want to rehire you. So,
was it Sternberg, or is it also?
Yes, yeah, I think you're right. Yes,
yeah. Like Sternberg was the editor, right? Like I think so. He was the editor.
I think you're right.
Not the other way around. I think.
Yeah, Meyer was the one who got the article through. That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah. So no, he wasn't persecuted. He wasn't bullied or harassed. He just wasn't rehired. Armitage has claimed the same thing. He tried claiming that like the university was harassing him when he proved that dinosaur tissue was young. That just didn't happen. He just lied. We did a whole thing about that way back. And fun fact, he probably didn't even find a Triceratops horn. So, oh well.
Sternberg filed a claim against the Smithsonian, but that case was dismissed. So.
Yep. All right. There have been some other ones. There are a couple other ones that they try.
It's the whole intelligent design expelled list, basically. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Is a great university and especially strong in the sciences. A statement on their website that Dr. Behe is entitled to express his views, but we, his colleagues in the biology department, do not view them as science.
He's been disclaimed.
That's no, he hasn't. Pause.
Oh no,
Pause.
they disagree with him. Oh no.
Right. There's literally nothing wrong. Right? Yeah. There's literally nothing wrong with that post. There isn't. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. They're not, again, like by saying that, you are demonstrating that he wasn't fired. He's not being harassed. They're not even like telling him to keep like, shut up, man. You're making us look bad. They're literally just saying he has his ideas. The rest of us don't agree. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's also ironic because they are the ones who are complaining that they are being shut down, but then they react to opinions that they disagree with, as if they are. It's very ironic. Like,
right?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah, it's
right. Yeah, it's very silly. There was another guy. I think Tony Reed did a couple of videos on all the like creationists who claim they've been harassed by scientific institutions. He did on his channel, How Creationism Taught Me Real Science. He did that a number of years ago. And so, yeah, I miss Tony. I hope he's doing all right.
I was thinking the same thing. So I talked to Tony a couple of months ago, and he said he was okay. He was just too busy to do anything on YouTube, but he will
fine.
He will be
Life
back.
gets in the way, I understand.
He will be back. So
okay. I mean, life happens. It gets in the way.
Yeah.
So,
What
I get
I
it.
was trying,
Um,
what I was trying to say is what I wrote down in the
sorry.
live. Like they say that, or they complain that they can't have their opinion, but then they also complain about other scientists stating their opinion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, it's okay for Behe to
That's true,
say
yeah.
that evolution isn't science because of irreducible complexity. It's fine for him to say it's not science, but if people say that about him, now it's persecution. It's
Yes. Yep.
they
But
have to
it's no
have their double standards.
persecution. Yep.
They have to have their double standards. They can't do without them.
Yep.
Academics espouse all kinds of crazy ideas. Why should these ideas, why should the challenge to Darwin and the suggestion that if there's a code, there's a coder, the suggestion of an intelligent design evoke such singular hostility? What is going on? I'll start with John because I didn't.
Okay.
What is going on?
All right, let's pause for a moment. Again, that's not hostility. Saying we disagree with you is not being hostile. That's the equivalent of because gay people can get married, this is like discrimination against me, even though nothing has changed. Like that's the level of this thinking. And again, they're all Christians, so surprise, surprise. But anyways, it's crazy. It's totally crazy to think that this is like discrimination or they're being disclaimed by their universities. They're not. They're still all employed. It's crazy.
It's free speech for me, but not for thee. Like they want to have that state their opinion without facing criticism. That's it. That's what they mean by.
Yes, that's really what they want.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's pretty similar again to like, I don't want you to get married. I don't want you to be able to get married, but I can still do it. I just don't want you to. It's like you're just hypocrites. You're just hypocrites. That's all. Yeah, this is nonsense. They're just, this is persecution porn, but again, creationists love that. So all right, let's keep going.
Domination of naturalism and materialism in the academy, which is so ironical. I'm from Oxford University. Its motto, and it's been there for a long time, is Dominus Illuminatio Mea. The people that founded the great universities of the world had no problem with the idea of an intelligent designer of the universe. But now somehow,
literally no
in the
one cares.
academy, anybody who espouses the idea that was the foundation of modern science in the 16th and 17th centuries, arguably as a historical thesis, is out. That strikes me.
And that idea, is
the founding idea is.
I find it very funny that he stated modern science and 16th century in the same sentence.
Yes, you're right. No, I mean it's kind of like when creationists cry that like, oh, nobody takes seriously the global flood in the universities anymore. Yeah, that's because it didn't happen and it couldn't have happened, and we have a list of reasons why it couldn't have happened.
Ooh. Yeah.
And also,
I mean, it's the same caliber of argument.
And also, he's harking back to a time when religions were still enforcing their religion with physical threats to people who didn't fall in line. And they were the religions were the ones that had the money, so they were the ones that were able to start schools. So yes, the older schools all were Christian schools, but not because God exists or Christ did something, but because they were the ones who had the money, and most of the time. Yeah, that money, if you didn't pay, there was consequences. So you had to tithe.
I mean, why was Gregor Mendel? You guys know, like, Gregor Mendel was a monk, right? Well, he had to be, as Peter said, because that's where the money was. If you wanted to get post like secondary education, you had to become a monk.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. Or be rich. And he was not from a rich family. So, yeah.
So the point that Lennox is making here isn't that great of a point. It's just showing what your religion did in the past. Yeah.
Yep.
And
well,
still
500 years ago, people believed this, Peter. So don't you know?
Yeah. As long as you keep paying 10% of your income, then everything's fine, because God can do miracles.
Fine.
One thing
Don't
he
worry about
can't do is he can't create money. That's what people.
Well,
that's
he
what
would
people.
get sued, or
Yeah.
or he would get sorry, not sued. He would get taxed. You know, he'd have to report his income to the IRS, and he probably would not report it correctly and would end up in jail. You know, like Al Capone. So.
Oh. I'd be curious whether or not miracles are deductibles. Then, I mean, and that's
all right. We can keep going.
Well, let me quote C.S. Lewis. Men became scientific. Why? Because they expected law in nature, and they expected law in nature because they believed in the legislator. There it is, encapsulated. That's Whitehead's thesis, if you want it, North Whitehead. And the point is, these gentlemen here, tragically, have been subject to an anti-intellectualism that has lost the spirit that lies behind the modern science that these universities claim to teach.
2 quotations, and then I'm going to ask each of you to comment. Here's quotation number 1. Oxford biologist Richard Dawkins, your sometime debating opponent, Richard Dawkins, quote, "The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil and no good, nothing but pointless indifference." Here's the second quotation from a man who at the time he wrote this was known as Cardinal Ratzinger. He would later become Pope Benedict XVI. Quote, "Let us go directly to the question of evolution and its mechanisms. Microbiology and biochemistry have brought revolutionary insights here. We must have the audacity to say that the great projects of the living creation are not the products of chance and error. They show us a creating intelligence, and they do so more luminously and radiantly today than ever before." Who's the better scientist?
Okay.
Who has a better grasp?
One of those is not a scientist.
He's quoting the Pope.
So...
He's quoting the Pope and saying who's the better scientist. Really?
Probably the guy who actually did science of the two of them, which was not the Pope.
And if you want to quote a Pope,
don't get me wrong.
Quote one that didn't have to resign because of his past. That would be a good thing.
Look, don't get me wrong. The Catholic Church does. Go ahead.
Sorry. I did it again. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
All right. We also must be fair to say that neither statements are really about science. Like Dawkins is about purpose. So neither statements have anything remotely to do with what he's asking about. So yeah, that's not my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that, like, the Catholic Church has funded a lot of astronomy research, interestingly. But yeah, no, that doesn't make the Pope a scientist. But yeah, as Neslick said, neither of these are about science. The question of whether the universe is indifferent to our existence is not a scientific question. So, you know, too bad. So, all right.
The first statement is not a statement of science at all.
Oh,
what?
Neither is the second.
Is giving his own.
What?
Yeah.
So the scientist didn't make a scientific statement, but the Pope did.
I agree that Dawkins did not make a statement that it is related to science. Neither did the second one. So yeah, it's neither did. So yeah.
He's not going to say the Pope didn't. I bet. I bet he's just going to say Dawkins didn't.
Maybe I don't know. Let's see.
All right, let's find out.
Maybe.
Atheistic belief and doing a spin on morality, which he contradicts in his own life. So it's of no consequence, I think.
I'd like to. I sometimes quote the same quote from Dawkins that you just read previously and followed up by saying he must be a lot of fun at parties. because he has such a gloomy
Grim.
view.
Nailed.
But he supports nothing, and Cardinal
Destroyed.
Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict, is talking science. He wasn't talking about
He
how
really is. He's not overshooting.
No, yeah, he was talking. He was. I should say he's talking the latest science. He's talking about what has been discovered by molecular biology and biochemistry and cell biology. He's not talking about how squirrels are so cute or things like that. He's saying, holy moly,
Squirrels
these
are
are
cute as
machines.
science.
Holy moly is a
apparently.
technical term.
Yeah.
I'm sure, from
Well,
theology,
that's
right?
Latin.
But Ratzinger's voice.
The fun part is, Mr. Behe, you're sitting at a table with a guy right next to you who thinks that you are a useless sinner who can't do anything right because you need Jesus. Talking about being fun at parties.
I mean, that's like kind of one of the base claims of Christianity in general, right?
Yes.
It is that like we're all sinners and we have to be redeemed, right?
We're all useless. We can't
anyway,
do anything without the God. And
I mean, the thing about that, I don't know. I think it's really funny that neither of them were making scientific claims. The Pope was basically just saying intelligent design, just what these guys are saying, which again, as Lennox correctly pointed out, is not science. It is beyond the science.
Yeah, it's like Behe says that like Ratzinger was talking science because he mentioned chemistry or biochemistry. Right. Oh, all right. Like Dawkins mentioned the universe, so I guess it must be science too. Because if you mention the universe, that must be. Yeah. It's silly. It's very silly.
Yep. Well, they're silly guys. They're just silly little guys. Yeah. So, all right, let's keep going.
Also, another good pass frame there.
They're having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're having a good time.
It's a party.
It's fun being in an echo chamber.
Was very important. He was in a school of very interesting German philosophers led by a man called Spemann. And one of the best deconstructions of Dawkins was written by one of Spemann's pupils, a man called Reinhard Löff. Unfortunately, it's only in German, not in English, but it is absolutely brilliant. But Ratzinger really, before he became Pope, he wrote a lot on this kind of stuff and influenced the present Cardinal in Vienna, Schönborn, a great deal.
Can I say something in favor of the Dawkins quote? I like the framing. He says, the universe we observe has precisely the properties we should observe. If at bottom there's no purpose, no design, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. I love the way he frames the issue. Question is he right? Are the things
he makes a testable assertion.
He makes a testable assertion about his materialistic philosophy. But then last summer, interestingly, he confessed to being knocked sideways by the digital information processing system of the cell. There was a new animation that was put up about it by an Australian group, and he said he was shocked by the intricate complexity. There's something extremely surprising. The universe doesn't look as it should from a strictly materialistic point of view. We should not expect the fine-tuning of the laws and constants of physics. We shouldn't expect a beginning to the universe. And we should, from a materialistic point of view, we certainly shouldn't have expected to find the intricate
I don't know why that would
nanotechnology and information technology that is evident in the living cell.
He's concluding from physical evidence whether he thinks there's purpose or not in the universe. And he's got his...
Well, so to pause just one moment, I don't know how Meyer makes any of those assertions. How do we know what the probability of, complex, like, transcription and translation enzymes, what is the probability of those evolving naturally? We don't know. We have no idea what the probability of that is. We have a sample size of 1, and we don't even know all the steps involved in that process. So how he can possibly make that assertion is just beyond me. Same with how do we know whether or not the universe would have an origin on naturalism? Again, sample size of 1. What are you talking about? Where are you getting these ideas?
It's just an assertion that one is more likely than the other. Like he doesn't have the probability of 1, and he also doesn't. He certainly has the probability of the other. Like it's just show me a there before you can claim that the one is more powerful.
Yeah, if we find life on other planets or something, what is the probability that they have transcription, translation mechanisms. Well, it probably pretty high, I would imagine. It's probably if life does exist on other planets, the probability they have some sort of genetic material and they can translate that to make parts for their cells is probably pretty high. So, but what is the odd? What are the odds? I guess of life arising? I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody
Jackson,
knows.
I have to correct you on one thing. So you said, where does he get the assertion from? So there's this famous scientist from Kentucky. I forgot his name. It has something to do with pork. He said, I have a book. That's where he got it from.
I figured you were going to go for an orifice traditionally associated with solid waste. That's what I thought you were going to go with.
But
I was surprised.
Yeah. So it's funny you should say that, because someone said that on my channel a long time ago, and that got me into serious trouble with SciGart. That specific sentence that you just said. But yeah. I've made up with Sci, so we're talking true. Again.
You have.
So I'm really happy that happened. But yeah, that was a weird flashback there for a minute. Okay, continue.
I will. Yep.
His opinion, but that means that that's a legitimate thing that one can ask. Is there physical evidence for purpose in life, in the universe?
It actually implies that it's legitimate to consider the question of design.
Yes. But it's worse than that.
Well, sure.
He's denying the existence of good and evil. And that destroys morality. And he does believe in the problem of evil because he rails against it. So there's a total disconnect at the moral level.
Gentlemen, last question.
Thank God.
Last question.
Oh, dang it.
I'm going to set it up one more time with two quotations. Quotation one, Michael Behe. The strength of intelligent design derives mainly from the workaday progress
LMAO.
of science. The cell is not getting any simpler. It is getting much more complex. Progress in 20th century science has led us to the design hypothesis. I expect progress in the 21st century to confirm and extend
Pause. Remember where they are right now. I just want to put in perspective that none of them have contributed anything on intelligent design to science. Their peers don't take them seriously. They lost the Dover trial, 18 years ago? They have, like, the following that they have is like a few people on the internet. They have done zero in terms of the regular everyday science to verify the intelligent design hypothesis.
It's probably safe to say that the most published journal is YouTube.
That is correct. Also, we have a question from the live chat. Is it true that there are deep sea creatures that are not carbon based but sulfur based? No, all of life is carbon based.
Yeah.
Sorry, it would be cool, but no. Sorry. You're a
also I don't think so.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's what those are. Anyway, keep going.
Okay, yeah.
Close quote. Here's quotation number 2 from a colleague of many of you, mathematician David Berlinski. The theory of evolution is unique among scientific instruments in being cherished not for what it contains, but for what it lacks. There are in Darwin's scheme no special creation, no divine guidance or transcendental forces.
Nor in any scientific
the
theories?
Oxford biologist Richard Dawkins has remarked with evident gratitude, Berlinski continues, made it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled atheist. Okay. No doubt, David Berlinski concludes, the theory of evolution will continue to play the singular role in the life of our secular culture that it has always played. Close quote.
Okay. And?
It's not a question of the science. What you're up against is a world
flat
view.
lying. Okay.
And Michael very cheerfully says, no. Science is science. They'll come around. In this century, the hypothesis of design will be extended and confirmed. And Berlinski says, oh, you silly boy.
Can we pause for a moment? Can Behe say something? Can he do like what Jesus said? Like, it will be confirmed while I'm still alive, or something like that. That would make me very happy if he did.
No, none of you shall taste death before.
Before intelligent design is proved. Yeah, right. Although, they could argue now, like, oh, well, he put it on the YouTube, so he meant anyone who has access to the video.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Also,
Okay.
again, a tacit admission that they don't agree, or they don't disagree with evolution based on scientific. It's just a culture war to them. That's the main beef that they have.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's why the Wedge document was so
Right.
was so powerful in in their early years. Was like once this came out and it showed they literally just want a theocracy, and they had to significantly backpedal to the point that now they're writing articles like, we never argued for a theocracy. That was never a thing that happened. Like, we have the receipts literally right here. This is where you did it. Professor Dave talked about that in I think it was the Gunter Beckley video. But it's so funny that they had to walk that back. Like, no, we didn't mean an actual theocracy. We meant we were just joshing you guys.
And then Professor Dave taps aggressively on the paper like, you said it right here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anyway, I mean, like the video I chose, or the picture I chose for this video today is C design proponentists, which was another big point during the Dover trial, because it was pointed out that they literally just replaced the word creationist and with like find and replace, right? In like a Word document or something. So
and there's no mystery to why that happened. Like I think it was like Edwards versus Aguilar.
Yes.
I forget the year. I think it's only in the 80s.
87.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
In my state. Woo.
Yeah. Well, really? Oh, nice. But that case ruled that the creationism was not science, and showed it couldn't be taught in public science classrooms because that would violate the establishment clause of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So then they say like, oh, we have to change our image.
Right.
I like the way Ken Miller talks about that, and he said, "Have we not learned from the Nixon administration? Burn everything if you make a change like that. Burn everything because they're going to find out." And that's what they did when they requested the earlier drafts. That's when everything came out.
That, like this change did not happen through intelligent design, Peter.
It was an unintelligent. It was a mutation, you see.
Yeah.
Or perhaps recombination. It's hard to tell.
Well, they came up with C design proponentists, so it was an unintelligent design that came up with that. That was just pure indifferent word processing. That the word processor didn't care whether or not the word existed or whether or not it was spelled correctly. It was pure indifference that made that happen.
Like with the C design proponentists, did they use a computer, or was somebody manually replacing every?
No.
Kappa 1611 says they didn't even use find and replace because, if I remember right, there were typos.
Yeah.
So someone went through individually and found every instance of it and had to change it.
I don't think so. I think they used the word processor, but because there was a typo in the text, that was replaced incorrectly, and that's how it came up with C design proponentists.
That's entirely possible. I don't know. I haven't read like The Devil in Dover, which was a book about the trial. I haven't read it. So sorry. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Tell who's more likely right, the optimist or David Berlinski?
I'm not a prophet.
But
those are two different quotes, though. Or they're about two different things.
He's made it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled Christian.
Stephen?
Well, I love what Mike said about the way the hypothesis of intelligent design is being confirmed and extended by 21st century science. We're seeing that in with many important experimental results and new discoveries. For example, a few years ago, the discovery that only a certain portion of the DNA codes for proteins and the rest doesn't, led many neo-Darwinists to develop the concept of junk DNA.
Yes.
The 97% that doesn't code for proteins, they said, is just the leftover
No, that's a
flotsam
lie.
and jetsam of the random trial and error process of natural selection and random mutation. Several of our leading ID proponents in the 1990s and early 2000s said, well, we agree that there should be some evidence of those random mutations accumulating, but not 97%. So we're going to predict, based on our theory, that those non-coding regions of the DNA aren't junk DNA, but rather they are importantly functional. And that prediction has now been confirmed by the ENCODE project and a number of other interesting developments.
No, that didn't happen either. Oh my God! No, I think we talked about this in the last video we did. So I'll be very
Look
brief.
who's in the chat. Right on cue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nope. Exactly right. Creation myth is exactly right. That's not and has never been the definition of junk DNA.
Yeah.
I believe it was it Oda? Back in the
Susuno Ono.
Ono. It was Ono. That's what it was. It was Ono back in the 70s who coined the term junk DNA, and it was not, from its inception, intended to be functionless. That was not the definition from its start. And the what else was there?
And it also was not the same.
The researchers who.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I did it again. Sorry, then you finish first. Sorry.
Well, at any rate, there are regions which we pretty much know don't do anything and really can't do anything. Like there are different pseudogenes which we have a pretty high degree of assurance just don't do anything. Either they don't have promoters or they lack like exons, which are the regions that during processing are like put together in your processed mRNA to be translated. There are regions that we know don't do anything, right? And claiming that ENCODE, which used a very weird definition of function, we did a video where we talked about that. They used like biochemical function, meaning it interacts with an enzyme, which, like as we pointed out in that video, you might as well call 100% of the DNA biochemically functional if you're going to do that, because it all interacts with DNA polymerase. And they were not the ones.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I did it again. Sorry, I cannot help myself. So you finish before I step in. Sorry.
I was just going to say, they didn't predict that some of those regions have function. The original paper that proposed the term junk DNA predicted that some of those regions would have function. So go ahead.
Oh, all right. Sorry about it.
Yeah.
Like, all I wanted to say is, like, I also recently had this discussion on the Peaceful Science Forum, discussing ENCODE with somebody, along with many others who were also there. But the point is that even from the very beginning, when the term was coined, we knew about functional non-coding elements like promoters. Right. We also knew about like genes that were coding for or non-coding, but they still produce the transfer RNA and the ribosomal RNA that are not coding for proteins. Right. So we knew about those things. So the argument was never, all of this non-coding DNA, so it's probably junk. That was never the argument. The argument was if the entire genome was functional, there would be too much mutational load. So probably in order for mutational load to not be lethal, about 30,000-ish functional section should be present in the human genome, which is very close to the number of actual genes we have in our genome. So Ono was very accurate when he predicted basically the number of functional genes that will be present in our genome. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, they're just, as Creation Myth points out, they're just hacks. These guys are just lying. It's dishonest to say that they were the ones who predicted it. It had been done way before them. No, just hacks. Okay. All right, we can keep going.
Bioinformatics. And we now know that the non-coding regions of the DNA are functioning roughly like an operating system in a computer. They're controlling the timing and expression of the coding files. And so we actually, this is a prediction that was made by proponents of intelligent design that's been confirmed by new discoveries.
I didn't answer your question. Am I an optimist? Actually, I am. Not a biologist, but reading the stuff from the so-called third wave of biology really does make me quite an optimist that there will be an intellectual breakthrough. There was a meeting at the Royal
Under the
Society.
weight of accumulating scientific
Under
Is he
the weight
talking
of
about
evidence.
the extended synthesis?
It's a very heavy ship, but it's beginning to turn, I think. And there was evidence at the Royal Society meeting just a couple
John's referring to a
years
meeting
ago.
in 2016 that was convened by members of the Royal Society and evolutionary biologists who doubt the standard neo-Darwinian model and who are saying we need a new theory of evolution, and they called the meeting to explore new evolutionary mechanisms that could either replace or supplement natural selection because of its lack of creative power.
I said that was the last question, but here's the last question.
So let's pause. Okay, so again, he is referring, I believe, to the extended synthesis, which is, as its name implies, an extension on the existing evolutionary synthesis. It is not seeking to replace natural selection or sexual selection or mutations, recombination, any of that. It is adding on to it. Now, I have qualms with the people who do the extended synthesis because I think some of them are overstating the case on certain issues. But regardless, they're not attempting to overthrow evolution. They are fully 100% evolutionary biologists, right? They're not trying to overthrow the theory. They're naturalists too. So it's crazy to hear Meyer talking about, like, oh, these guys are giving those naturalists what for. It's like, no, they are naturalists too. They're on the same side. They still think you guys are idiots. All right, we can keep going.
Too much fun.
Here's you, three of you, lovely, cheerful, splendid men, and you say if there's a code, there's a coder, and you say, well, there are mechanisms by which one could imagine a mind participating or intervening or participating, let's say that, in the material world. All right, here's the objection.
There's no evidence?
Haven't you ever heard of the Inquisition? Haven't you ever heard of the religious wars? Don't you understand the importance of the American settlement, whereby we had the Puritans in New England,
I swear,
and the
if they
Episcopalians in the
mention the
South,
German
and the
party
Catholics
of
in
the
Maryland,
20th
and the
century,
settlement
I will...
was to each his own. But there's going to be a public space here in which we can work together. This is what gives us the American, modern American, the university, the modern research, let's put it that way, the modern research institution. And it's the way you three are going. Maybe the three of you don't intend it.
Out the door,
but the people
down
who
the
come
street,
right
away
after
from the
you
university
are going to be right back to put them in stocks, old-fashioned morality. The religion is a very tricky and quite often in human history, baneful.
Hold on. Is he arguing that if we bring religion back, it's going to restart the Inquisition?
I think he's throwing a softball at them. I think but they are going to push against that idea, I think.
The weird thing is, did I get it right? Did he justify the Inquisition? Did he say it was a good thing? Because
well, he didn't say it was good. He was like, "What about the Inquisition?" But
he's trying to play devil's advocate, like saying like, "Oh,"
but doing a bad job of it.
Yeah.
But I think that if you do let the religious get all the power, it will become a theocracy. Well, not just any religious people, but if you let the hardliners get power, it will become theocracy. Look at Florida. If you want a test case, look over at Florida or Texas. Either way. Yeah. So, no, this is very silly argument. Whatever he's coming up with, but we can keep going.
Influence, and the three of you are kicking open the door to this dragon that we had very carefully locked up. Michael?
Well, opinions differ on that, I think. But,
what does that mean?
You're undermining the Enlightenment.
This is science.
What he just said is that we're kicking open the door to new Inquisition. I could be completely wrong because we paused it on a few occasions, but it really seems to me that he thinks that a new kind of inquisition would help because it would help them promote the idea of intelligent design.
I'm not gonna lie, Behe's response was very startling. The opinions differ on the Inquisition.
Yeah.
Well, I think he meant to say that. Oh, my opinion is that the religion is actually good. Like that's I think he's trying to say that.
I hope that's what he meant, because I don't know if the mask slipped a little bit there or what, but that was I don't know.
It's what I got from it.
I don't know. Anyway,
I could be mistaken.
Anyway, we can keep going.
And science doesn't care about your particular worldview. We have
That's true.
Throughout history, scientific discoveries such as the microbial world and relativity and other things have upset our very notion of what reality is.
Sure.
And now it's the turn of molecular biology and biochemistry to make us sit up and take notice. I can't stop science from discovering complexity and elegance.
You also can't do science, apparently.
It's there. What people do with it is a different question.
I'm saving the last word for John because he's the senior man at this table.
As well you should. I have a friendly debating partner named Michael Ruse. He's a British professor of philosophy and biology, Florida State.
An atheist, by the way.
We've done a number of debates. And Michael's written an important book in which he explains that Darwinism has functioned as a kind of secular religion for many people in the sciences. And so
no, that's not what he was referring to. No, I've seen that quotation before. What he's referring to is social Darwinism, not like actual Darwinism, like as in 1860s version of evolution. And no one is using it as using the 1860s version of evolution as their moral compass. He's talking about social Darwinism, okay, which has nothing to do with evolution.
No.
Just want to throw that out there because he's about to poison the well.
And outside of the United States, there's no such thing as Darwinism. If you're going to the UK and you accuse someone of being a Darwinist, you're going to look like a fool.
Well, these guys already do that in spades, so.
Yeah. Their natural state of being, I guess.
People from different worldviews can, at any time, initiate inquisitions and cancellations of people they disagree with. I think we all have to be careful not to indulge in that. But this isn't, the cancellations have not just come from one side or the other in the debates in human history. On the other hand, and so I think one of the reasons that intelligent design has been silenced, that Michael's been disclaimed, and Richard Sternberg
it's been silenced. Video with 30 million views.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that when you challenge Darwinism, you are challenging not just a scientific theory, but a deeply held worldview or something that's functioning as a kind of secular religion. And people on that side of the aisle have been guilty of indulging in cancel culture. And I think we just all need to disclaim.
I love it when they try to. I love it when they try to drag down evolution to the level of a religion, as if they know that what they believe can be proven. It's merely belief, and you have to take it on faith. And you can take any position based on faith. So if they're going to drag down a field of science to where it's just based on faith, that just shows that you know that your position holds no merit. And you want other people to be in the same spot. And that is, to me, one of the most dishonest things to do. They're not equal.
Also,
religion and science are not on an equal footing.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of cancel culture, what happens when like an ID proponent or a creationist admits that evolution is actually on strong grounds? Like what was the name again? Todd Wood. Like
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that was Todd Wood.
Yeah.
Well, he got canceled by his own side.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the fun thing is that Apologia dug up that blog in which he just said all of that, and Todd Wood had to redesign his blog and had to redesign the post because it was getting so much traffic. Because after Paul put it in his video, I've shot the link many times on several different live streams so people could actually go and check whether or not he actually said it. And he's come out and said, yeah, the evolutionists have discovered this particular blog page, and it's getting more traffic than any other blog page. So yeah, it got him into a spot of trouble.
It's because he was honest for once.
Yes.
I mean, him and what was it, Kurt Wise, I think was the other one, where like, you know, they admit like, okay, yeah, all right, evolution has lots of evidence behind it. It's like it's a biblical thing for me, not really the evidence. It's like when they're honest about it, yeah, of course we're gonna be like, look, they were honest. I still point to Behe saying that common ancestry is true and that the Earth is billions of years old. Like, I pointed that. He doesn't say that anymore, and Meyer never said that. He never agreed with that, but I still point to it, you know.
Yeah, and still,
it shocks all of us. The bar is on the floor, so when they tell the truth, it shocks all of us.
Also, since we start like a half an hour later, do we continue half an hour more, or do we stop at the same time?
I was going to ask the same thing because we've got 4 minutes.
What do you guys think? Should we go with the extra?
I'm
up. Should we go the extra, or do you guys want to call it quits?
I'm down. I'm down with continuing.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
I think we're pretty close on this one, aren't we?
3 minutes, 4 minutes left, and okay, I do have to apologize because I did promise you that I would put the new videos all in one video, and
that's okay, Peter.
I completely forgot, but I have the next video lined up, so we could continue if you want to. That's up to you.
We'll finish this one, then we'll start the next one the next time.
Okay.
All right.
That and follow the evidence where it leads. And one final thought, and that is that in the history of science,
he only had one
belief in a designer, a creator, inspired scientific innovation and development.
Who cares?
You look at Newton, for example. He developed the calculus, the binomial theory, developed the theory of gravitation, the laws of motion. His Principia was meant to reveal the principles of creation that had come from the mind of God. So a belief in a creator doesn't stifle scientific innovation. It can inspire it. And we think our modern theory of intelligent design is also going to lead to new discoveries, such as the one I mentioned a minute ago, that junk DNA isn't junk.
John Lennox, Professor Emeritus of Mathematics, a noble and pure expression of the mind of man at one of the greatest universities that has ever existed, the University of Oxford. Professor Lennox, you are complicit in rolling back the Enlightenment.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to do it because the Enlightenment discovered that the best way to deal with opponents was to cut their heads off. And the historians, particularly John Gray, who's an atheist actually, one of the top historians of the intellectual in Europe, points out that there's a direct line from the Enlightenment to the persecutions of Stalin and the horrific destruction of life in the 20th century. So you'll get nowhere with the Enlightenment. Second point, coming from Northern Ireland, I'm acutely...
Pause. That is a terrible argument. That's... Okay. I mean, sure, you can do that with anything, though, right? You can draw a direct line of descent from the Enlightenment to the Westboro Baptist Church. I mean...
Look, one habit after the other.
What? One habit after the other, yes.
After the other.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can say like, oh, well, they had this particular set of theological beliefs in the Enlightenment, and this split off in different ways, and it went to the New World, which, again, split off in different ways, and eventually the Westboro Baptist Church was one of those factions. Like, that's a direct line of descent from one to the other. You can play that with anything, though. You can play...
Also,
you know, the crucifixion of Jesus led directly to the Holocaust because the Holocaust happened after that. Like, okay,
don't mention that word too many times. Otherwise,
oops, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're already demonetized. No, it's good.
And also it's also ironic that he brings up like Soviet Russia, because what did they have against what was their opinion of evolutionary theory, and particularly
they hated it. They
Yeah,
hated
Darwin, yeah.
evolution and the concept of the gene. They were all like Lamarckists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another fun fact is that
you're doing nuance. Stop doing nuance.
Another fun fact is that Stalin based his particular version of communism and how he ruled Russia strongly on the Russian Orthodox Church in which he was brought up. And so he knew what to do in order to make the sheep fall in line, so to speak. So there's a base there. And what to me is mind-boggling is that, did he actually say that it was a good thing to chop your opponent's head off? Basically,
no, he said during the Enlightenment they chopped their opponents' heads off, which is why he's okay with rolling back the Enlightenment.
Oh yeah. Was he referring to the French Revolution there?
I assume so, but I think that's a weirdly narrow interpretation of the Enlightenment, because like, doesn't he do philosophy? And his whole idea, and the first thing that comes to mind when someone says you're rolling back the Enlightenment is good because the French Revolution happened. It's like, we shouldn't have technology because the H thing happened in 1940s Germany.
Another thing is,
what is the reasoning behind that?
I live close to the German border, and I can go to the city called Münster, where there's a church in the middle, in the center of town, that still has cages hanging from the steeples, where the non-believers, after being tortured for days and sometimes even longer, were just left to die and rot, so people could see what would happen if they did not believe. So yeah, John Lennox, going back to things like that, it's not just Stalin that did that. Your religion is very, very guilty when it comes to things like that.
It also, that comment kind of makes me think more that Behe was referring to that people have different opinions about the Spanish Inquisition now, because now that the mask is slipping off. So I don't know. Anyway,
there's a reason they call it the Dark Ages. I'm just saying. There was a reason for that. Okay, continue.
Because everybody lived by candlelight.
Yeah.
Aware of the reputation of religions, particularly Christianity, for causing war. And that has led me to do a lot of investigating. And I've come to the conclusion about which I've written, so I'll not go into it in much
Christianity
detail.
Famously never led to any wars.
What has happened there is that people have failed to go to the heart of the issue. Now, some religions may generate wars. I'm not denying that, and they will have to speak for themselves. But one of the most interesting things about Christianity is that Christ was tried. And it's a public record that he was tried for being a terrorist. We rarely put it into modern terms. He was exonerated by the Roman procurator. And why? Because when challenged whether he was a political opponent of Rome, he said, "My kingdom is not from this world. Otherwise my servants would have been fighting," and he'd stopped them fighting. "But now my kingdom isn't from here." "You're a king?" "Yes," he said. "To this end I was born, and to this end I came into the world, to bear witness to the truth." And Pilate said, "What is truth?" and went out, declared Christ innocent, but then gave in to the crowd. The point of that is hugely important historically. I used to wonder, why is there so much in the New Testament Gospels about the trial of Christ? And suddenly I realized it's because of this precise question. Christ repudiated violence so that people in my own country who followed him using bombs on both sides.
Yes.
Okay, now I have to jump in. In your own country, that includes Ireland, in which when you come out as an atheist, you get the question, well, but are you a Catholic atheist or are you a Protestant atheist?
Or a Protestant atheist. Yeah.
Yes. They're still fighting, John, in your country.
Well, I know there's a separate country or not. Yeah, it's separate.
Well, he said he's Irish, didn't he?
Well, it's part of the United Kingdom. Let's put it like that.
I thought he said in my home country of Ireland, or well, maybe I misheard him. Anyway,
They weren't Christian at all because they repudiated Christ. The obvious thing in all
no,
of
they
this
weren't
is
real Christians.
the one thing you cannot do with sheer power.
I love it when Christians say they were not real Christians. I wish for once, let there be one Christian who is going to decide who is the real Christians and who isn't. Because it's getting confused for the atheists. Because we listen to one Christian saying that he's a real Christian and you're not, and then we listen to another Christian like you who's saying that that guy you talked to wasn't a real Christian. Who's the judge in all of this?
I'm sure that like creationists would say Lennox isn't a real Christian because he is fine with the earth being old.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't care. If you call yourself a Christian, fine. If not, okay, I don't care. You telling other people that they're not Christians does not help you.
No. And you obviously cannot read minds, so you have no reason to state that someone else isn't a Christian.
Yep.
It's that easy.
Is to impose truth on people. And I think Pilate saw that.
John Lennox, Michael Behe, Stephen Meyer. Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you.
We did it. Go team.
For
All right,
Uncommon Knowledge
You
and the Hoover
survived.
Institution,
Yay.
I'm Peter Robinson.
No, your name is Bob.
you're Bob. You're Bob. I refuse to have a namesake.
Why would Bob say that? I don't understand why Bob would say something so ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me.
He would say that because I'm here and he wants to get some kind of good reviews.
He's trying to emulate you.
Yeah.
Have we stopped at the right time even? Like in the normal, even stopped at the normal time. Also,
We have.
Right on cue.
We have.
Well,
I think God
we
must
did it.
have interfered with Jackson's computer so that we could end on one video and then start the next week on another video, so Jackson wouldn't have confusing titles of the video.
Well, that is a small mercy. You know what they say.
Mhm.
Thank God for small miracles, right?
Yes.
Well, I actually, so funny enough, I think it was just yesterday actually, somebody on Twitter posted this video. They linked it and said this is a long and powerful video, and I said long, yes, powerful, powerfully boring.
Mhm. Yeah. They always say the opposite.
Just like the
like the one that you're targeting, the Wendell talks, but he doesn't want to talk. He also doesn't want to listen.
Funny enough, Peter, my highest liked tweet of all time is now me ratioing Wendell. Not once, but twice on the same tweet. I responded first on his tweet and ratioed him, and then quote tweeted him and ratioed him again. And it was like, both of them got like 6,000 likes. That's never happened before. Never happened.
I'm not familiar with Wendell.
This guy Wendell talks. He's basically he's like a Ray Comfort sort of guy. He just posts stupid stuff. I quote tweeted him today. What did he say? He said, another argument for a young universe is the existence of comets. Comets are made of ice and dust and are thought to have originated in the outer reaches of the solar system. However, if the solar system were billions of years old, all the volatile materials in the comets would have evaporated long ago and there would be no comets left. So I said, another one from Kent Hovind's stupid playbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw.
So, I mean, it is. It's like saying that the existence of young things proves that the universe is young. I mean, I could just as easily say the universe is no older than 25 years old because I am 25.
Mm-hmm.
If you're older than me, you were just created, with age. You were created with age. So
you got a new tooth implant, so that must mean you're only 1 year old or so.
Exactly. Yeah. No, everything else is created with age. I'm the only thing that actually ages. Yeah, I can do that too. Like, it's a stupid argument. It's so bad. Yeah. They also do it for, I think it's Niagara Falls, because Niagara Falls is like only a couple thousand years old, and they're like, look, Niagara Falls is only a few thousand years old. Yes.
Yeah.
Not everything is the age of the universe. Like, what? It's such a weird argument, because you have to get them, because you have to say, are you implying that the universe is young because there are young things in it? So, to which they will either say, the correct answer is no. Then you say, then what was the point of your argument? There was no point. But if they say yes, then you can pull the, well, okay, then the universe is 25 years old. It's either way, it doesn't make any sense to make this argument. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess we'll, so next time for you guys, I guess we'll give you a little primer. We're going to be covering these videos put out by, what is it, Genesis Apologetics?
Yep.
And they're about they're about like how the human body shows design, and they're each like the short videos are like 4 or so minutes.
Are those the same videos that RNR is covering?
No.
Different ones.
No,
he's covering the John and Jane videos.
Yeah, these are there signs of evolution in our body? It's a multiple part thing. So
that's right. He's doing the one with the museum docent. That's what it is.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah, and before that he had the John and Jane videos too.
Yes, yeah. That's right. Yeah, no, we're not doing the same one as him. This is one that I saw. Somebody recommended it to me on Twitter recently, and I watched it, and it's just so bad. You're all just gonna hate it, just like I did. And since I was forced to watch it, now I will force all of you.
Yeah, because Jackson was forced to watch it, he forced me to subscribe to the channel so I can download every single new episode that comes out that we have to rebut. So yeah, that was a first.
I guess we're gonna close it. So, do you guys have anything coming up?
Yes.
Anything you guys want to shill? What's going on?
Yeah, so next Thursday, just a few hours before we do our show, I'm going to have a Christian on. I have no clue whether or not he's a young Earth creationist or not, but he has new claims that I've never heard of before. The fact that once a human is conceived, they are known. And I've tried to figure out how they are known, but I can't figure it out. Today, yeah, I don't know. So today, let me get that right, because I sent it to Artie, who's going to be my co-host for that particular show. He said, I think I might be able to connect the notion of parents making a choice, in quotation marks, when it comes to having a child with the act of the will, and how the child uses instruments, i.e. writing and gestures, etc., and how it ties into a will, and how the exercise of a will ultimately ties into a mind. I have no clue. I have no clue what he means with that, but so that's what we're going to talk about next Thursday.
It's not even wrong. That's all I say.
It's not even wrong.
And the week after that, we're going to have our previous guest Nathan back on. I told him I'm not going to talk about why the Earth is flat, because that's the thing that's not going to be entertained on my channel. But he's got his topic of choice. And the week after that, and this is all on a Thursday, so people can watch in sequence, can go to my channel and then hop over to Jackson. And the week after that, we're going to have a Muslim on who has completely mistranslated the Quran into making some new points on why Islam is correct. He's translated heavens into planets. And according to him, the sun and the moon are planets. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. And I'm going to have Mubarak on that conversation for that one, and so for Nathan, I'm going to have Professor Flynn on, and then we're going to have another professor from Canada on, and I'm still waiting for her to email me to set that up. Who's also a Christian and wants to have a conversation about that. So I'm busy, and then next Wednesday for people
we were supposed to have.
My last one.
We were talking with. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Next Wednesday we have Blasphemer's Bible because Arden is traveling, so we can't do it on the regular Saturday. So that's going to be next Wednesday at let me check real quick. 5 p.m. Central. So people who want to watch that. And I'm still trying to get an email from the guy who was in chat.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
we haven't heard from that guy yet.
I won't name his full name. I got an email and he called himself Felix, so let's keep it at that. I have his last name, but no need to put that on air.
Well, yeah, we were supposed to, in theory, we were going to talk to him, but he never responded.
Yeah, he wanted to talk about protein folding, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We're not even entirely sure what he's referring to, but yeah, we'll talk.
Initially, he
I have an idea, but yeah.
Initially, he wanted to discuss on how the Dover trial had nothing to do with science, and the judge had no call, how do you say that? It wasn't justified in saying that intelligent design wasn't science. And the whole we just everything we said about the Dover trial was wrong, basically. But we're not going to talk about that.
I mean, I just don't think it's that really interesting of a topic, but
it isn't.
Anyway. All right, Nestle, what have you got?
Well, I'm a bit salty about one thing. Like last weekend, our neighbor, the Germans, have shut down the last nuclear power plant. So that means they will be continuing to burn more coal than they really need to.
Mm-hmm.
And it also means that our electricity prices are going to go up a bit as well, even in the Netherlands, because of that.
They've already gone up in Germany.
I have a problem. You're like, I have a problem with my neighbors, the Germans.
Yeah.
Well,
also funny. Like in the last few years, most Germans have turned positive towards nuclear, which is very ironic now that they are finishing. I have
to be politically correct. I don't have a problem with all the Germans because I still need a road to get to my house.
Yeah.
And so I have to go through Germany. So let's not infuriate the Germans with everything, because then I'm stuck. It's not all of the Germans.
Well, they are burning coal that we are breathing in. So I have a right to be upset about it.
Yeah,
I guess you're right.
Yeah, we all have, but it's just a small minority, and several countries have said, "Don't do this, don't shut it down," and they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they could turn it back on, but I'm not very hopeful that they will turn it back on. But yeah.
Well, as someone who lives closely to a former nuclear plant, it does serve well as a recreation park, which it is now. Not kidding. Mm-hmm. Just a few miles from where I live, there's a recreational park.
Is it?
In a nuclear facility.
There is actually like the building where we store the nuclear waste. Also contains a art museum. So basically, if you can visit the nuclear waste site and to just view the art as well. It's just like a bit like a museum basically. So yeah. It's very,
I'd advocate to go just a few kilometers south, and there's the Rock Museum in a small town called Gronau. Visit that. that's a pretty impressive museum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to sign off for today.
Sure.
Thank you, Peter, for hosting, and thank you, Neslig, for being here and being part of the chat. Thank you, everybody who was in the live chat, for watching, and we will see all of you next week.
Bye everyone.